Welcome, everybody, and thank you for coming. Thank you, parents. Thank you, staff. Thank you, Atif, Hassan, and Libby Nicholas, Susie, and Adam from Dukes. It's Friday night, and I appreciate you giving up your time to come and listen to me this evening. I'm Adrian Rainbow. I'm honored and delighted to be the new headmaster at Hampton Court House. I'm going to be speaking for about 45 minutes about my educational philosophy and my strategy going forward. And I do hope afterwards you can stick around and have more food and another glass of wine, and use that as an opportunity to ask me any questions that you might have that perhaps weren't asked in the Q&A afterwards. To begin my presentation, it's important for me to communicate four main principles that are fundamental to me as a person to understand what underpins my philosophy of education and my strategic ambitions. I am unashamedly and unapologetically idealistic about the power of education to transform young people's lives. I love children and watching them grow. I believe that working in education is not just a job, it's an absolute privilege, and with that privilege comes great responsibility, especially for me as a headmaster. And I fervently believe in Nelson Mandela's assertion that education is the most powerful weapon which you can use to change the world. I think that what I'm about to outline to you will make more sense that you understand these principles that guide me in all the decisions that I make. I also thought, just before I start, I'd mention one thing that happened today. The Year 5s knew I was doing this today, and the teacher, actually it was Rachel doing a cover lesson, said, well, why don't you write a letter to Adrian to give him some help for his strategy? Where would you like to see the school in 2026? And there were so many interesting ideas from all the students, and some of them on point as well, which was amazing. But I thought I'd just read one, which I thought was great, and in some ways with thinking, okay, we could just end the evening on this one, but I will continue. So, dear Adrian, this is my motivation speech for you, because it must be hard saying your first big speech as a headmaster. I hope in 5 years the school will be turquoise with a cinema in the main hall, 4D. We will each have a dog, and there will be stables. Now, I can't promise the dogs or the stables, although I would like to get a dog and bring a dog in to school with me all the time, but we'll see how that goes. I need to find a house first with a garden. But before I start to outline my educational philosophy in more detail, I thought I'd briefly explain how I ended up here, standing in front of you as the new headmaster of HTH. I'm Canadian, not from New Zealand, as somebody mentioned earlier. Pressing the wrong way up. So I'm Canadian. I'm a small town Canadian boy. Grew up in a place called Greenwood, British Columbia, west part of Canada. Population 900 at the time, 600 now. Very quiet, remote place. We had one grocery store, a couple of restaurants, a post office, and a swimming pool. That was about it. We lived on the side of a mountain in this house, which I think looks a little bit like that house, but not quite. But when I was a child, it looked like that house. And on the first day, on the first assembly, and I know some of the children went and told their parents about this, I told the children about a story of where I used to play in the backyard with my brother. And sometimes my mom would come right out onto this porch here, and she would yell at us to come back inside, and quite firmly, and we would look up and run back inside, and then notice that there was a bear in this tree right here, eating the crab apples from the tree. And I also told them the story about one time when it was late at night, and my dad was at the back side of the house on that porch. It was very dark, and we had a big black Newfoundland dog. And my dad was calling her name was Tara. My dad was calling the dog in, saying, Tara, get in. It was very late, very dark. Nothing happened. He was shuffling around, trying to find some food, and he was getting angry, trying to get her out of the rubbish. And true story, went up and grabbed our dog and realized it was a bear. Very, very thick fur, and heard the little grrr, and quickly backtracked to the house. And what I didn't tell the children, though, after that, they thought it was a great story. What I didn't tell them is he had to shoot it the next day. True story. But why I'm sharing this story with you and being in Greenwood is that these were very formative years for me in growing up in this place, in this environment. They've made an indelible impact on me as a human being. They've kind of formed, I think, who I was today. I grew up there until I was 10 years old and then moved on to not a much bigger place. But it was a place of magic. I couldn't see any of our neighbors. We were literally on the side of a mountain. It was magical. It was wonderful. We just played and had this opportunity to have self-discovery all the time. It was a place of innocence and adventure where my brother and I could run around in the woods all day. My parents weren't worried about us at all, notwithstanding the bears. But it was the Canadian version of Narnia. And this is what resonates with me so much. I hope it wasn't the bear story. This is what resonates with me so much at HCH, because I appreciate that we're in southwest London. But once you enter these gates, this is a place where your children can immerse themselves in joyous play, where they can be children, just be children, where they can feel like they're entering into another world, where they can enter Narnia. And I don't think we should underestimate that, just how valuable our school site is in their development, in their formative development, growing their confidence, for their sense of wonder, awe, and marvel. And being in this environment every day will make an indelible imprint on your children and will impact them positively, I'm sure. And I feel very much at home here. I feel really drawn to this school. In terms of my biography, the other important thing that I think you need to know about me is that I played American football professionally for many years. After leaving Greenwood, I went to the next place was called Kelowna. These are all photos of me. I started to play football there, and then after high school, got a scholarship at the University of British Columbia, where then after finishing my BA, I was drafted into the Canadian Football League by the Montreal Alouettes, where I had a brief stint before I was transferred to the German Football League, where I spent 10 years playing American football professionally, and at the same time doing my PGCE, my first MA, and my PhD. I often say, this was fun for me, obviously. It was a fantastic time in my life. Sometimes look back to the glory days. Winning a German Bowl in front of 33,000 fans was a memory I'll never forget. But it was much, much more than just fun. I often say that I learned everything about myself on the American football pitch. How to relate to others, how to gain confidence, how to solve problems. I learned that resilience, that grit. And I explained to your children in that first assembly that I want them to find their version of what I found in football, whatever that is, to try as many different things at HCH, and for us to give them those opportunities. But whether it's music, sport, drama, debating, chess, knitting, whatever, find something that makes your heart sing, something that you feel passionate about, something that you want to continue to do. Because the combination of what I learned on the football pitch and also through those postgraduate studies were quite grueling for me as well, are also another reason why I'm standing in front of you today, why I have the resilience to be able to do this right now. And it also helped me design my educational philosophy. So before outlining some of my strategy moving forward, I would like to just talk to you a little bit about the educational philosophy that I brought with me to HCH. So I believe, as what I started off with the 4 principles that I told you about. I believe in holistic, transformative character education. I want all of your children to fall in love with learning so that they become lifelong learners. I want them to enable them to be self-regulated learners, to have a sense of responsibility for their own learning and engage in self-leadership. I want to empower them to be global citizens with an international mindset and ultimately to be creative change agents who want to make the world a better place. This holistic approach means that what I see as the 4 essential pillars of education, the academic, the pastoral, the experiential, and community, need to overlap. Everything we need to do needs to be joined up and seen as an opportunity to grow. Ultimately, and I know that Ai Weiwei was referring to communist China with the following quotation, but I want people to see their own power. And for me, this foremostly applies to the children, to our students, but also to everyone in the community, to all of our staff, and also to you as parents. If we look at the school's ethos that I inherited, I think all of this chimes quite nicely. And although I would like to distill these down, it was the ethos that attracted me to HCH and why I'm so proud to be the headmaster. It's also likely that you chose HCH for your children because of this ethos. I want to lead a school that puts the children at the heart of everything that we do, where pastoral care is the golden thread running through everything, where we truly care about our children and respect and value them as individuals. Kindness, compassion, and empathy have to be the foundation of any outstanding school. Despite everything I'm about to outline, my ultimate success criteria that underpins everything is that your children are happy. And I'm going to come back to that a little bit as we go along. So, looking to the future and where I'd like HCH to be in 2026. When I started thinking about the future at HCH and a strategy moving forward, I started by questioning everything we do. I started interrogating about what are we doing that is really, are we really equipping our children with the skills they need for the precarious future that they will be facing? I am concerned with the world that our children are inheriting. I have 2 children at the school, one in year 4 and one in year 1, and I am worried about their future. Catastrophic global climate change, pandemics and disease, extreme poverty of destitute nations, famine, war, terrorism, biological and nuclear weapons, to name a few. We need to ensure that we are providing our pupils with the necessary skills to be able to not just navigate this precarious future, but to thrive in it, to be the future empathetic leaders who can inspire those around them to enact positive change, to find solutions. This, along with ensuring that they are confident, happy, and thriving, surely has to be the main purpose of all educators. At least it is for me. And so I hope you can see that through my strategy, it will help them be happy, but also provide them with the skills they need to be future fit. So again, going back and devising my strategy, I started asking, why are we doing what we're doing? What is our learning vision? What makes us so distinctive? How bold do we want to be? Are we preparing our students effectively? And then perhaps less dramatically, some questions around the 13 plus and why, as an all through school, are we focused on something like that when the majority of our students continue on into the upper years? Why do we do GCSEs? Do we think they are fit for purpose? So my strategy that you're going to hear is designed on the answers of some of these questions. It is not definitive. It's going to evolve. This is the end of my second week. It's going to evolve through research, through review with my Duke's colleagues, through consultation with you. And it's not this, what I might be proposing right now is quite unilateral, but I'm not going to just be imposing that. It's going to be a journey that we're going to all be going through together. But this is what is my vision. So in 2026, I want to be an outstanding school where each individual student achieves their utmost potential and where they are nourished and nurtured to be able to flourish, thrive, and fly. And the best way for me to be able to achieve this is to focus on those areas around it, those 6 areas of strategic direction that I want to lead the school. So modern academic education, pastoral excellence, inclusion and diversity, experiential learning, outreach, service, and partnerships, and I throw in community with that, and then financial security. So to start with the academic, like all head teachers, I want to have a culture of high performance, which sees that every child receives excellent exam results and that every door is open to them when they leave us, whether that's going to be at another senior school or whether that's university. They need to get top grades, and why not? But grades, of course, are not everything that matter. It's not just about grades. I had dinner last year with the head of admissions from Yale, and I asked him, how do we, and this was when I was at Seven Oaks, and I said, how do we get our students into, you guys take very few of our students, yet they're all A star, A star, A star, A star, the equivalent in the IB world. And he was saying, I don't just want the high grades. He wasn't interested. He was interested in the curious and critical mind. And there's something he said that stuck with me. He said, I want students who are audacious in the way that they think, that they're problem solvers who can think outside of the box, students who are passionately curious and creative, not just the ones who can achieve the highest grades. So I have very high aspirations and expectations for education that will enable our students to be these audacious learners, passionately curious and creative. This means, of course, high-quality teaching in the classroom, teaching and learning in the classroom. The best available evidence right now indicates that great teaching is the most important lever schools have to improve outcomes for their students. And especially when you've got staff like ours that are so inspirational to the student and understand their subject knowledge so well. I am blessed to have inherited the staff that I've inherited here. But what are they teaching? What's the curriculum? And can we reinvigorate or reimagine what we're doing to ensure that we're equipping our children with the skills they need to promote this academic scholarship, this intellectual curiosity, and independent thinking? So my general academic strategy, before getting a little bit more specific in it, is really thinking about this, to reimagine, to reinvigorate the curriculum, to think about curriculum change, and especially that promotes this curiosity and creativity. Thinking about our PSHE and SMSC. Digital literacy plans, getting more engaged in the technology and ed tech around teaching and learning. We need a library. Many of you know that we don't have one yet. I'm going to be talking to Atif about this. And just enhancing classroom practice to support the individual needs and ambitions of every individual student. So I'm going to try and apply this to the various sections of the school, going from early years up to sixth form, because I know people are coming from all different areas tonight. And I'll start with the early years, and the early years and the low years that I'll put together, actually. And I want to build on what they're already doing, which is so fantastic. But I want them to get even better at what they're doing. My strategy for the early years and the lower years is to work with our staff in those areas. I was very much interested in Amy Kimball from Riverside Nurseries and Dukes, Montessori expert. I'm very attracted to that, and I've talked to Sarah Folks earlier about just to what extent we can start adopting some of those principles. I want the curriculum to be based on them fulfilling their individual potential by supporting them to draw on their natural development drives. The phonics program in reading is a massive initiative of ours right now because we're recognizing how important reading is for our students, especially in those early and lower years. And then Forest School. You've seen where I come from. You've seen our site. So important to me. So I'm especially really keen on developing the outdoor learning right up to year 6. We have this most amazing site. Let's use it. By 2026, I want to be the center of excellence for Forest School and have this as a major USP of the school. In terms of the reading, we know how important reading is. And reading confers all sorts of intellectual advantages. Research, especially by critics like David Didow, are looking at how much it demonstrates that the more you read, the more intelligent you will become. At HCH, private reading is seen as an integral part of children's intellectual development. Not only is it a crucial foundation for academic progress, but it plays an equally important role in enabling emotional and social formation. You can see all the great benefits of reading that I'm sure you're already aware of, but what I really want to push moving forward. The early years and lower year staff in English department are currently focusing on developing a first-rate phonics program and reading scheme. We're so happy. Is Hosanna here tonight? She can't be with us, but we've just appointed the most amazing reading specialist, serious credentials, and I'm going to really try and she's only here for a term at the moment. I'm going to really try and hold on to her. But we do a lot of reading already, whether it's independent or through guided reading. But I want to focus on this and really drive this forward as being a key strategy for the school. Inculcating this love of reading has to happen in these lower years to set the tone for its importance. But I know this will provide an excellent foundation for the next stages of the continuum. So my next specific strategic initiative focuses on the middle years and really around language provision. As you all know, we do language really, really, really well, and I want to continue to do it really well. Our French department has been recognized by the French government with the award of Institut Français status. Our 13+ Mandarin results were some of the best in the country. GCSE Spanish teaching won a Good Schools Guide Award, and the United Nations has accredited us as a UNESCO associated school. It's amazing. But I would like HTH to be known as the school for languages in the UK. Our lower years French immersion program is first rate and has received so much critical attention. And that made me really ask, okay, so, well, why do we stop in year 4 then? Didn't make any sense to me when I first arrived. And so, by 2026, 5 years' time, I want to have much more bilingualism in the school, at least up to year 9. This means implementing some sort of immersion in years 5 to 8, culminating with all students doing their GCSE in year 9. I know this, if the students were in the room right now, that would have elicited many groans, I'm sure. And I know it's not easy. It's not easy for many students. I'm Canadian, I should be bilingual, and I'm not. And when I speak to any of our friends, Claire smiles very kindly to me, but I basically stopped trying to speak any French here. I'm embarrassed about that. And so I get that it's difficult for some students. But the benefits of speaking a second language, or indeed a third language, are so immense, and I strongly feel that we should build on this positive foundation that we already have moving forward. But more generally about the middle years, and as I've said in previous parents' evenings, this is an area that needs some attention, those years 5 to 8. I don't think it has much of an identity at the moment. And these formative years are incredibly important in terms of preparation for their further study, and it's an optimal time to continue planting the seeds and teaching the skills that they'll enable and empower them as lifelong learners. Some work was done a few years ago to revive this section of the school, but it was not implemented at the time. I think the staff member that was driving it actually left the school. But I was happy to look at it and see that much of it really aligns with my educational philosophy. And so what I propose for the Middle Years program is a bespoke HTH Middle Years diploma. And this diploma would take into account all of the ways that the intellectual, personal, and emotional qualities are all interrelated. What happens outside the classroom is just as important as what happens inside, because one influences the other in a very significant way. A common set of values, as well as the promotion of interdisciplinary approaches, means that the courses of study within the curriculum speak to one another in ways that encourage students to transfer knowledge and skills from one subject across to another. And one of the advantages of being such a small school and having such dynamic staff is that there's an abundance of cross-curricular opportunities that we already explore. Our staff are used to collaborating on interconnected and interdependent learning projects. So in this way, the Middle Years Diploma will create a holistic academic profile, one that is analytical and creative, challenging, ambitious, and I hope fun. The Middle Years program or diploma will provide our students with this holistic understanding of education that is interconnected rather than compartmentalized. It will also prepare them for the ideas that I have for the upper years. And bear with me on this one. So for the upper years, I'd like to continue with the same trend. As you may or may not know, there's lots of discussion nationally about the efficacy and purpose of GCSEs. I would like to create a bespoke HTH qualification, or perhaps some sort of certificate or qualification in partnership with the other Duke schools. This will be something that will challenge the GCSEs and be more fit for purpose for what our children will need in the 21st century. My proposal would still have IGCSEs at the core of the program in English, math, science, and modern languages, but it would offer something more creative and bespoke around this core. The previous two schools where I worked, Sevenoaks School, where I've just come from, and UWC Atlantic College before that, they had their own bespoke curricula, and one of them specifically to supplement the GCSEs. So I've witnessed firsthand how providing teachers with autonomy and giving them the freedom to create their own syllabus made for an inspiring and enriching curriculum. This was fulfilling and exciting for the staff who were keen to light the fire and spark curiosity about their subject that they love without constantly thinking about exam results and jumping through unnecessary hoops. It allowed them to step outside of the rigidity of having to follow a national curriculum and to really focus on what makes them love their subject. It is so good for teacher recruitment and retention, something every headmaster is thinking about across the country. But more importantly, it's positive for the students. It's inspiring because they're being taught by inspired and motivated teachers, but also because these courses foster inquiry, creativity, critical thinking, and independent learning in much more enriching ways than a selection of individual GCSEs. I would like to point out that this does not in any way imply a soft or diminished approach to academic rigor or scholarship. These courses will be peer-reviewed, they will be externally moderated and accredited by universities. And I would still want to have the backstop of traditional core IGCSE subjects as its foundation. But I feel it's time to reimagine education, time to ensure we are equipping our children with the necessary skills to navigate the world when they leave our school walls. For these two new approaches in the middle years and the upper years, it's predicated on thinking differently about pedagogy and curriculum. These programs I'm proposing place much more emphasis on student-centered learning, on independent learning. There's an emphasis on self-reflection, metacognition, and students being empowered and in control of their own learning. The child is in the driving seat throughout the whole process. They have internalized the strategies for their own learning. They are active learners rather than just passive recipients that are learning through rote learning, like in some GCSE subjects. And in their journey to lifelong learning, I want them to learn to self-regulate, self-lead, to understand how they as individuals think and learn, and to understand what strategies and techniques work best for them to access information effectively, like in the example shown on the screen, in terms of metacognition. This focus on metacognition and self-regulation would be at the heart of everything that I would want to do in the middle years program, in that middle years diploma, and in the upper years program. But I believe we have to educate our young people differently. And this is the best way to do so, which so many great minds have already been arguing for quite some time. These quotations from Piaget, Einstein, and Gilbert encapsulate the spirit of needing to reimagine what we're doing with education. I'll just give you a chance to read those. And I especially love the one from Einstein. We can't solve the problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. Seems like we're just in this perpetual cycle. Well, we're not getting very far with this. Seems to be moving towards even more and more disaster without trying to sound too negative. But of course, this emphasis on self-regulation, self-leadership, and self-learning doesn't mean that the students are just on their own. This isn't like some sort of progressive experiment where we throw the children in a room and say, wow, let's watch them learn. Oh, wow, they don't know anything. There's lots of research done right now by Daisy Christodoulou and David Didow that show that self-centered learning by the students still involves a lot of interaction with the teacher as the facilitator. The teacher is the one that's still crucial in that relationship. Their subject knowledge and ability to help the student on their journey is paramount. It's still them that sparks that fire, that ignites that flame and inspires them. But the foundations built in the middle years diploma and in the upper years will then prepare the students for the sixth form, either here at HCH or in other schools, including all of those other schools that are reimagining how we educate our children for the 21st century. So for my strategy for the sixth form, moving forward, I want to continue with A-levels. So some people are asking me, I come from two IB schools, and saying, you're going to do IB, and even though I love the IB and still think it's the golden standard out there of what's on offer, I do love A-levels as well, and I'm not going to change for the moment. So I want to continue with A-levels, but we need to bolster our provision, in my mind, significantly by looking at increasing the range of enrichment courses we offer in order to provide the best possible support and preparation for university and life beyond. I want to explore the idea of doing the extended project qualification, which would enable our students to engage in a significant piece of research of their own choosing. And in addition to the EPQ, we have a really exciting development emerging, namely a project with a current parent, Sanj Gupta, who's in the audience tonight. Hi, Sanj. And his work with Nebula Research. This will be a collaborative research project, which will look fantastic on a UCAS application, but it will provide our sixth formers with the necessary research skills in order to thrive at university. It will also help them foster their sense of social responsibility, as Nebula Research is a group that focuses on global citizen benefit and engaging in strategic discourse around how to improve the UK public sector. The students will be working with professors and postgraduate students on active research, addressing real social problems facing our community. It is a mutually beneficial program in so many ways, and I'm really excited to launch this very soon. You'll hear much more about this. Along the same vein, I also want our sixth formers to engage in a social leadership program. And this would be a program whereby each student or students working collaboratively, would think about a project that they could initiate that would make the world a better place. Some charity, some cause, whatever it is that they feel really close to their heart. This would be a program whereby each student would focus on social entrepreneurship, but also perhaps social justice and on equality. This would help them with many practical skills, like with the research skills of the project with SANJ or the EPQ, but it will also increase their social capital, their social literacy, and their empathy. When speaking to universities, it's clear that they're no longer, like the guy from Yale, they're no longer just looking for high grades. They're looking for good people who can work with other good people on solving problems. This world of AI that we're going into and hyper technology, still the computers are never going to be able to have that human element. And this is what universities and corporations are looking for, not just somebody that has that subject knowledge. So that's a program I really want to develop with them, and I want to develop that with Libby. I know she's interested in that as well across the Dukes family. I want our sixth formers also to play much more of a leading role within the HCH community. I want them to lead a club or a society for the younger students, to tutor them, to mentor them, whether that's in a language or in maths or in English or whatever, anything they can do. I want them to come to either school a little bit earlier, or we'll put something in their timetable where they're actively contributing to our community. I've talked to Junior, our amazing chef, who I think is here tonight, and I thank him for the food, in terms of whether they can help in the kitchen, do all these things that will help our community and also help them in terms of giving them something to put on the personal statement for their UCAS applications. Being the oldest students in an all-through school has so many advantages, but it also has, in my mind, responsibilities. Again, this is mutually beneficial for what our younger children will learn, but also for what they will get out of it. Okay, I'm going to move to pastoral care. In addition to the woes of the world that I mentioned earlier, I would also add to this that the pressures, as we all know, on teenagers are ever greater today and seem to be ever increasing. Whether this is from their own expectations or those of staff, parents, and peers, grades and university requirements, uncertainty about future careers, social media, addiction to technology, self-image, family pressures, as well as sensitivity to the problems facing the world at large. It is our job as a school, as parents, as adults, to listen, to have empathy, to support, to care, and to empower students so that they can make the best decisions for themselves. We often say here that if there was a league table for kindness, that HCH would be number one on that list. But there is so much more that we need to do in pastoral care than just be kind and caring and love our children. The areas that I want to develop, I really want to focus on better communication with the whole school community. I've already talked to some parents about this, how much I want to get you involved in this, the triangulation with parents, so that we can promote the best pastoral care. Better systems, giving more time, staff training and appraisals. I mentioned at the beginning of the year in INSET that it's the job of every single teacher here to foster pastoral care at the school. You don't just teach a subject. You are first and foremost a pastoral leader of the school, looking after the children's well-being. Developing healthy peer networks, dealing with issues around cyberbullying or body image or just regular bullying, developing our PSHE and SMSC programs, and developing what I call an inner curriculum. I want to work with our pastoral team, with Amy, who's here as our new deputy head pastoral, and with Katie, who's the assistant head of pastoral care, but with all of our staff. I want to work with them to develop programs of support that are going to reinforce and develop our current provision. I want to enhance our pastoral care, so much that our students are best prepared to make considered and well-informed decisions to deal positively with whatever the precarious future holds. I want them to embrace this inner curriculum that I talk about, where kindness, mindfulness, emotional literacy, emotional sensitivity, and emotional resistance and resilience are strong. But most importantly, what I'm talking to you tonight, it's this triangulation with you, the school, the parents, and the child, that I really want to build initially with you, that we're on the same page. I want to achieve this common understanding so that we all know how to deal with these pastoral concerns together. And this will be done. I want to have lots of parent evenings in the future, very much like the one we had with Bob Wigley, if you were able to join that in person this previous week, where he came and talked about the book that he's written called Born Digital, the story of a distracted generation. And if you joined on Zoom, as you would have known, that was a fascinating conversation just about how we can help our young people with social media, with iPads, with them being addicted to video games or whatever it is. I want you to be as involved as possible. It's only through working together and reinforcing the same support that we can provide our students with the best pastoral care. As I've already mentioned, my ultimate success criteria is that they're happy. So closely linked to this strategic objective are my thoughts around inclusion and diversity. So recent events, Black Lives Matter, everyone is invited, has forced all of us in education, all of us as adults, to think about our role in how we entrench social norms, and indeed how we can challenge them, how we can flip the script. This is something that I take extremely seriously as headmaster, and I, of course, will not tolerate any form of racism, misogyny, homophobia, or any form of discrimination. And although we already have an amazingly diverse community full of international flair, by 2026, I want to make HCH to be known for its position on inclusivity and diversity. I'm about to advertise for a new role, a head of inclusion and diversity, who I really want to drive this strategy forward. I want every voice in our community to be heard. So in this area, I want to, again, developing the curriculum that's more aware of inclusion and diversity. Our SEND provision is every child being supported in the classroom, regardless of their educational need. Student voice, so important in terms of holistic education and being that confident, independent learner. Strategies around deep listening. All perspectives are heard, considered, no child excluded. And to engage with strategies to ensure that we as a community do not have any blind spots. We really need to interrogate ourselves. I think what Black Lives Matter is, and everyone is invited to show, is that many schools were sideswiped, didn't really think about it critically enough. And now we are, which is great, and I look forward to things progressing in the future. But so what will that look like at HCH? So far more, LGBTQ plus representatives in every form, student voice to be accentuated through student ambassadors, student council. I want representatives to come to every SLT meeting and to come and speak to me anytime. I've already had, as you probably know, many students have already knocked on my door without an appointment through my PA, Gladys, and just said, do I have 5 minutes? And of course I do, and I've been very pleased to see that they're very forthright in presenting their views, which is fantastic, exactly why I wanted to be at this school. But I want them to also to be working with other students around Dukes, the Dukes family as perhaps ambassadors. I want lots of student-led conferences, TEDx events, where they drive it, they're empowered. Maybe we'll watch over it with a benevolent eye to make sure all things go right, but that they are the ones that are in the driving seat. I want freedom to speak up ambassadors at the school, and I want them to be organizing things like Young Leaders Forum, especially across the Dukes family. And so through an explicit focus on inclusion and diversity, I hope we'll be able to collectively learn how to move forward together to ensure that everyone is treated with respect and dignity. And again, it's the responsibility of all of us in the room, but it's extremely important to me as headmaster. So, excuse me 1 sec. My next strategic focus is going to be on service outreach and partnerships. This is my background, service-based learning, something that is really important to me. I've mentioned already the social leadership program in the sixth form, but I really want service and service-based learning to be embedded in our school's DNA. My priorities would be to embed it throughout in the curriculum, to create a service program, more volunteering in the local community or in the national community or internationally, and going on, and I don't mean just poverty tourism in terms of those trips, but actively really thinking about going on international trips where we give dignity to the people that we're going to, and it is a partnership, not us being charitable by bringing them money or going and giving them a new water pump, but where we're actively engaging with them. I want to develop strong links with local schools, primary and secondary, and I want to develop a scholarship and bursary fund. We are all privileged to be in this room, and I want our children to understand that. And with privilege comes responsibility, especially the older students. I want to foster social responsibility and empathy with them so that they think of others that are less fortunate and think about ways that they can improve their lives. I was really excited, actually, to learn that HCH has a really interesting history around this that you may not know before it became a school. Back in the 1980s, I know it says 1990 down there, but it was in the 1980s. You can recognize the school in the background. The local council at the time, which used to own the house, leased the property to Save the Children, who housed a large number of the Vietnamese boat children, as they were called at the time, were unaccompanied refugee children. They all stayed at Hampton Court House for quite a while, apparently. Anybody know that? Excellent. I mean, I love it. This is one of my favorite photos of Hampton Court House. I love it. Many of them are still in the UK. They made their lives here. And I want to commemorate this formally, this period of history in this building, and at the same time see if we can launch something around some sort of initiative about refugees and the terrible plight that so many people in the world are in at the moment. I've seen firsthand in my previous two schools how service and student volunteering impacts not only the ones who are helped, but the ones who help. And the latter, arguably, I would say, actually gain much more. I've already done an assembly this week on one of my favorite books called Legacy. And I talked to the students about some of the principles with this, and I will keep coming back to Legacy. I highly recommend you read this book if you're interested in it. You don't have to be interested in rugby or sport. James Kerr followed the All Blacks around, arguably the best team in the history of sport, certainly at the time he wrote the book. And he wanted to see, why are they so successful? It can't just be that they're big and strong or start playing rugby right when they're out of the womb. There's got to be something more to it, and indeed there is. It's about the culture that they've built within the All Blacks. It's about things like sweeping the sheds is their first principle, that all of the best players in the world of rugby, after they're finished training and after they're finished their games, do not expect a cleaner to come in and clean it out, that they clean it themselves as an act of humility. That is amazingly powerful, and they said it is that humility and that foundation that makes them who they are, that makes them the best All Blacks that they can be. And that's what I want for our children. I want our children to know that treating others, that leading by example, by treating others with respect, by balancing pride with humility, they're going to be more successful, that character triumphs over talent. And so closely related to this, I want to develop our scholarships and bursary provision. I want to increase the number of means-tested bursaries that we offer. Rachel, who spoke earlier, part of her role, as soon as she can sink her teeth into it, as soon as we can get things up and running at the school this term, is to instigate a friend-raising and fundraising campaign that you'll hear much more about. I'm going to be asking all of you in the Friends of HCH and the wider parent body for you to play a part in this, for you to play a significant role, so that we can all of us think about initiatives that might raise capital, right? Might raise money so that we can widen access through scholarships and bursaries. This ties in with my inclusion and diversity strategy in terms of not just having the same socioeconomic profile at the school, but that we really widen that access. But it's also just the right thing for us to be doing. As I mentioned, I would like to develop a strategy to fund 100% bursaries and even partial bursaries, means-tested augmentation for up to 100% of fees to give music, academic, drama, sport, and service scholarships. Hardship support. It's hard times for many people. People are losing, I don't want a family who's been here for 5 years, 10 years, and then they might have some financial hardship and think that we can't keep those children in our school. And also then an endowment fund, which would be great that we could, and so Rachel, I'm going to be looking at her, she's got a big job ahead of her, but I'm really positive about this, and I would love you, and especially if this is an area that you work in, I would love to hear from you in ways that we can increase this. Dukes also have something there called the Dukes Foundation, that I would love HCH to be a flagship school within that, where we can really try and raise as many funds as possible. And close to my heart, next strategic initiative, I was the deputy head of the co-curricular, a celebration of experiential learning. I really want to develop this at the school. We do so many amazing things. We have an extensive array of activities, sport, musical ensembles, drama productions, clubs, trips, visits, talks, but I want to build on this more and more and more. It's within the co-curricular that I really see the magic happening. It's so important for students in terms of those soft skills that people talk about, that they need, again, to get into university, but also to function well and effectively in the workforce. We all learn, as I said, I learned everything about myself on the American football pitch, but we all learn so much about ourselves when we are pushed, when we are challenged, when we are outside of our comfort zone, and the co-curricular is perfect for that. I want your children to try new things, as many things as possible, to see what excites them, what they're passionate about, but I also want them to be challenged, to learn through these activities. They're not just fun. Yeah, they're fun, and that's great, good for de-stressing or just having a laugh and having fun. But we do learn so much of ourselves when we're out of that comfort zone. Leadership skills, problem-solving skills, resilience, grit, discipline, to name just a few. And along with empathy and compassion, this is what schools, especially schools like Harvard, are looking for. And any Russell Group university or any university at all, actually. This is what experiential learning does, and it all aligns with the holistic education that I mentioned earlier. Sport, and Roy's here tonight, and he said he came because he will answer any question that you might have afterwards. Many of you have asked me about sport and what I'm going to do about sport, especially knowing my background, and indeed this is a major strategic priority for me. At the moment, we're trying to do everything that we can on site, especially with the little ones, to ensure that we're not wasting time, 20 minutes in a minibus to go somewhere. They get changed, they do their sport, and then they've only maybe got 20 minutes, and they got to get back on the bus and 20 minutes back. So we're trying to do everything we can, but we all know that we don't have the massive facilities in sport that other schools have. The 7 main areas that Roy and Megan and Yannick are looking at the moment are athletics, cross-country, basketball, golf, netball, table tennis, and sculling. Apart from the sculling and the golf, we can do all of this on site and indeed use Bushy Park, and I am going to get us running in Bushy Park again. That has to happen. We can't be here and not be able to run cross-country in Bushy Park. That will happen, I promise you. But we've historically been hamstrung what we can do. Also, as a co-educational school with small cohorts, we can't really get a group of under 15 football players to go off and compete against another school. However, this week I had Daryl Weidman, who's the head of Radnor House Twickenham, here to visit, and I asked him if we could piggyback some of the things they're doing at Radnor House, especially for those athletes of ours that are really keen on sport and would just die to play in a proper rugby game or a proper cricket game or a proper football game or a proper hockey game or netball or whatever it is. And of course, he said, with open arms, we've got to look at things like supervision and insurance and that sort of thing, but one of the advantages of being in Dukes is that we can rely on our friends, and so watch this space. I'm talking right now with their director of sport about what we can do in terms of us going there, they're coming here, and creating perhaps a bit more of a robust program around that. And I know Roy also is putting together a network in terms of getting a lot of the other schools, the Duke schools, but even other, I think not even Duke schools, coming here and doing jamboree type events so that our students can get that competition. And I know some of us think, I don't want my child to be engaged in competition, but I'm talking about healthy competition. So learning to win graciously, failing and what that feels like, and that's okay, and respecting your competitor and just trying your best. And so watch this space. There's lots that I think that we want to do. I'm also talking to Atif about Dukes has sponsored or owns a cricket club, Twickenham Cricket Club at the north end of Radnor, or of Bushy Park, and we're able to use that now for cricket. They're building a swimming pool there, so lots of you will be happy to know that we'll be doing our swimming there. And so there's lots of areas that we're wanting to develop. I would love to be able to put a Muga or a first state-of-the-art sport facility up on the sports field at the back of the site. I don't think we'll get planning permission for that. And I'm not sure if I'd be allowed to do that as well. But watch this space. I will do everything that I can to try and advance sport. I want in 2026 that parents are not just sending their children here for the language and the emphasis on reading and this creative curriculum that we've got and all the other great things we're doing, that we're kind and compassionate, but they're sending their children here for the sport as well and what we can do on site. Okay, I think almost at the end. Thank you for bearing with me. Finances and facilities. We have this beautiful building and obviously the site, but as you can imagine, it's very costly to maintain and to protect. There's been an intense program of refurbishment in recent years, which has seen the upgrading of some of our facilities, especially in the building of the greenhouse classrooms, if you've seen those, which look fantastic, almost finished, but finished enough that we can have lessons in them. Further upgrades to our buildings and infrastructure are now due. I want to ensure that we have excellent site security and also that we're maximizing the effectiveness of all our resources, both financial and physical. I want to create a sustainable plan for developing the beauty and the functionality of this campus environment. Going to be with Dukes be undertaking a full audit of the use of space in order to create a 5 to 10 year development plan for the school, this master plan, and of course I will be taking you with me in that journey all along the way and be telling you exactly what we're thinking of, and of course would love to hear what you think we need as a school. I've had very productive meetings with Lisa Maynard, who's the head of operations at Dukes, to see what's possible. I've got a wish list that Atif and Libby will be seeing very soon, and we'll see how that goes. Sixth Form Center, top of my list, as well as the library, which I've already mentioned. Lastly, you, and celebrating our HCH community. I've talked a lot about this triangulation and how important the parents are to me for pastoral care, for getting behind everything, for our relationship together. I've said to you, many of us already in this room have had some pretty heated discussions, very productive and very respectful, obviously, but I know, and I really value that, and I said that to you at the time, and I will say that really openly tonight. I want to be very transparent and open with you, and I don't want to hear on Mumsnet or on social media about any gripes. Come to me. My door is always open. I really want to hear from you, and we can have a very productive conversation, I'm sure. I really mean that, so please come to me. I really want to enhance this alumni program, reimagine the Form 7 program that we have, and develop a parent forum program for parents to come and speak with the SLT and the ELT. So you would have, if you've seen the newsletter that went out today, we've got our first one coming up on the 6th of October, where I'll invite all of you to come to the school, and I will talk to you about some of the strategic initiatives that I'm thinking about. Maybe it's the middle years program. Maybe we'll have we can really open up that discussion, and it'll be an opportunity for you to ask any question that you want about anything, and we'll answer anything you want. You don't have to submit questions ahead of time at all. So those will happen regularly. We'll invite you to the school for that. Mention that. I mentioned the Form 7, really want to integrate this. This is something that I heard about this in the past at the school, and I just think it's absolutely fantastic. You know, talks and courses, all these wonderful things that you guys used to do, where we'd open our doors to the community, people would come and learn from either our staff or our network, our parents, people within the Dukes Academy, and we can make something that I think could be really interesting. And so whether it's a talk about something, but also whether, it's knitting. I'll run something on how to throw an American football, and everybody will be welcome to come. And I really want to hear from you. You have so many stories, so many different perspectives, so many of you doing such interesting things. It's one of the things I love about Hampton Court House, meeting parents that are really creative and doing amazing things in your professions and your backstory. I would love our students to hear more about that in an assembly, and I would also like you to share that with the rest of the community and adults. So share that knowledge. For me, it's free, but it also is in a way where we can really reinvigorate a community of learning, of lifelong learners. I want you all to be lifelong learners and be those role models for your children. And your children hearing that you're going to come and do a talk on whatever it is that you're interested in or what you're expert in. It will be amazing for your children. So I really want to get that rolling as soon as possible. Okay, so that's my strategy. Again, I want to say this is not just, I'm not unilaterally imprinting this now. This is what I want, where I want to go. I would love to hear from you, not just tonight, but in the future, what you think about that. This is where I want to be in 5 years' time. Some things we can do really quickly. Some things like curriculum reviews and redesigning curriculum are going to take a lot longer. But I want to hear from you, and it's not, everything will be done through consultation. Just before I bring it to a close, I just want to thank a few people. Thank you for my staff, for those of you here tonight, for those of you watching on Zoom. You are doing an amazing job. I'm now seeing firsthand that true spirit of the staff here at HTH and how special you are. And as I said earlier, I'm really blessed to have inherited such an amazing staff. So thank you for everything you're doing for the children. And thank you for welcoming me with open arms as well. So thank you, staff. Thank you, Atif, Hassan, and Libby, Nicholas, and everyone else at Dukes for helping HCH thrive. Their support of me and the investment that we've already received from Dukes has already been outstanding and has been a game changer. I'm thrilled that we're on this journey together, and I'm so happy that you guys are our proprietors, so thank you. I want to thank my mom and dad who are watching on Zoom from Canada. Both of them had teachers, so that's another reason why I'm standing up here. I wouldn't be here today without their unwavering support and their unconditional love, so thanks, Mom and Dad. And I want to thank my wife, Miriam. I've asked my wife to take a leap of faith so many times now, and she's always so graciously, lovingly, and generously agreed to this. This step was our biggest one, but I know we're going to be extremely happy here in the HCH community, but thank you, Miriam, for everything that you've sacrificed for us to be here. And lastly, then, just to thank all of you. So thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for being here. But also thank you in advance for this partnership that we're going to have. And I really want that to be a fulfilling partnership where we can move together. And that, I really mean that together in making sure that that all of the children here are thriving and achieving their utmost potential. Thank you.